guys, and welcome back to another Outriders build video. Today we're going to be going over a build that's very different to the previous ones I've gone over. This build is a support build, so for that case there's not actually going to be any gameplay at the end of it because it's incredibly hard to show you what this build's capable of when it's my teammate's screen that is doing it. Because this is made to boost damage, save your teammates, and everything like that. And unfortunately, it's very hard to get that sort of gameplay footage. But I'll at least be able to show you what the build is capable of in theory. So, without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with the class tree. Very different from my previous one. So in this class tree, we're going with the Tech Shaman skill tree. We are going with Anomaly Body 10% max health, Gadgeteer for 15% skill cooldown on gadget skills, 20% resistance there, more health. We don't need this increase your armor by 20%, so we've gone with enemies afflicted with freeze receive 10% more damage. We increase our max health again, and we also pick up enemies below 30% health receive 20% more damage. And then we continue on with another Gadgeteer, getting 15% cooldown reduction on gadget skills again, and we pick up some more health. We get Senior Engineer. This helps because it increases our turret skill health by 100%, and the big one, this is a major one that helps out so much, Exposing Frost. Every time freeze is afflicted on an enemy, vulnerable status is afflicted as well. And we also pick up vulnerable or afflicted on enemies is 40% more effective, because every little helps with this. Then we have Freeze Afflicted, lasts 20% longer on enemies, and we picked up the armor plates here for increasing your armor by 20%. We then took Suction Module, increase weapon life leech by 5%, and another lot of armor plates for increasing your armor by 20%. We then take Medical Unit, using a gadget skill, increases all healing received by you and your allies for 30%. For 7 seconds. And then Doctor of Medicine, increase all healing by 20% for you and your allies, which is very good, and enemies afflicted with freeze receive 30% more damage, which is just super handy. And this last one, Overclocked. Activating gadget skills increases your anomaly power and weapon damage by 40% for 10 seconds. And then for 10 seconds upon losing all health, you will receive a second chance to return to the battlefield with 50% of your max health. And this effect may occur once every 180 seconds, which is 3 minutes. So, with all that there, it's a lot to take in. But you've got ways of boosting your own weapon damage and anomaly power here. You also are able to keep your team alive, freeze the enemy to make it easier for your team, and apply vulnerable to everything. On top of that, your freeze lasts a lot longer than other people's freeze because of the skill tree we've chosen. But let's get on to the skills though. On here, you'll notice no blighted rounds. Why is that? Well, this build I have developed is not made to deal much damage at all. And I don't want it to be built that way. I want it to be built with the people who like to sit back a bit and support your team, kind of like an artillery unit. So we have Cryo Turret as our first one. And yes, it doesn't deal much damage, but it inflicts a freeze on the enemy, which is what we want. Now, I would prefer Blighted Turret, but we've got skills for the Cryo Turret that will help out so much, and obviously it's a 7.1 second cooldown, which is just amazing. We then move on to Fixing Wave, which releases an energy restoring a third of max health to every player. But I have skills from the class tree that boost it. So in theory, we're actually healing everyone for about 50 to 60% of their health if I get my procs and activate Fixing Wave. Our fourth one is Cold Snap, which is just obviously so good, allowing me to freeze multiple enemies at once. And with some of the mods we run, you could be anywhere and still freeze all the enemies. Moving on, weapons. Weapons don't really matter here, okay? Because, like I said, we're not here to deal damage. So you can run whatever weapon you want. Here I'm running Twisted Mercy. It's got ultimate vulnerability bullets, as well as I've rolled Wrath of Moloch on it. The reason I've rolled Wrath of Moloch on it is because I want to be able to apply extra debuffs or extra damage over time, which is in the shape of burn. But this little extra damage will also help my teammates. So I've put that on. You can run Scrap Grenade or anything else like that. I personally haven't chosen to. My second run is the bolt action rifle, the Iceberg, with Winter's Blast. So if all my skills are on cooldown and we need a massive group froze, all I have to do is hit a crit shot, and within 4 meters, all the enemies are frozen. And I also have damage link on there. What this does is I can link up to 4 enemies by shooting them, and then 30% of their weapon damage dealt and 15% of their normally damage dealt is shared between them. Now the reason this is good is because I am not going to do a lot of the damage, but I can help my teammates clear them faster by linking 4 enemies, because now they only have to shoot at 1 enemy to damage 4, which is incredibly handy. Moving on, we're actually running the Borealis Monarch set. The reason we do this is because of its 3 EPs. Increase weapon damage on frozen enemies by 90%, and also crit hit damage is increased by 10% for all party members for 8 seconds after cold snap usage. So I get to boost all of our crit damage just by snapping my fingers together and freezing them all in the form of cold snap, which is absolutely brilliant, I feel. I think it's great that I'm able to do that, because this means that I get to boost damage as well as heal them. Overly heal them, I should say, because the amount of heals you'll be able to pull out of this build, your team shouldn't really die. Moving on, I should probably go over the skills though, shouldn't I? On this first one we've got Twins, Cryo Turret. 2 turrets can be placed before triggering the cooldown, which is amazing. We're on a 7.1 second cooldown, but hey, we only have to do it every other turret. It's great. It's great. Like, you know. And the thing is, the second throw you get can still actually proc the skill tree, the class tree node, that using a gadget increases healing for you and your party, which is great. It was just absolutely great again. I have Captain on here, but you can change that for whatever you want. I've got it on here just so that I can do a little bit extra damage to elites, because typically those are the only enemies that I would shoot at any point in time. Because, you know, my teammates will just melt all the other standard enemies, you know. Moving on here we have bonus firepower, long range damage, and cooldown reduction. Pretty much it's bonus firepower and long range damage, and then it's either cooldown reduction or status power or close range damage. It's kind of a mix, which I don't mind, because the main thing we're really wanting is to sit back, so we only really need bonus firepower and long range damage for when we are adding that little bit extra damage. On here we have Long Winter, which increases our cold snaps radius by 66%, which means you can freeze the entire area no problem with this, essentially. Cold snap, it's great. Then we also have Freezing Boost, which just boosts our damage even more to enemies that are frozen. And with the Borealis Monarch set, that's already 105% extra damage towards frozen enemies. Moving on to the Waistcloth of the Borealis Monarch. Bonus firepower, status power, and long range damage. We also have Cryo Down. This decreases the cryo tower, or its skull cooldown by 50%, which I think is amazing. And then we also have Shatter, which brings our damage to frozen enemies up to 130% altogether, which I think is just insane. Imagine if this build was made to deal damage. all you have to do is slap the absolute zero on there and boom. Actually, that's a good idea. I might start working on that, everyone. But anyway, we move on to the lovely Containment Overseer gloves. I wasn't able to find any other gloves. This was the best gloves I could get, but you know, if you can find bonus firepower with long range damage and then either cooldown reduction or status power, it is really good. But in here I have Cleansing Wind. Fixing Wave activating the skill removes negative statuses from you and your allies and grants 5 seconds of immunity, which is absolutely brilliant. Oh, those crawlers are coming around and freezing your whole team? Well, that's annoying. Now they have 5 seconds of immunity from freeze. It's brilliant. It's the same with elites in Boomtown. The one guy's got the cryo turret. Super annoying. Well, look, now we've got 5 seconds of immunity. And the thing is, the cooldown for this the activation of this mod is only as long as your cooldown is of Fixing Wave. So, it's very strong in my opinion. Then, we also have Radical Therapy on here. Most of my teammates that I play with use Technomancer, so I've got that on there because most of the enemies are going to be toxic anyway. So I just deal a little bit extra damage to help out. Moving on to Boots of the Borealis Monarch with max health, cooldown reduction, and long range damage, which is very nice in my opinion. We have Fixer Upper, Fixing Wave. Activating this skill increases health regen by 5% of max health for you and your allies. This is even more healing on top of the already 50 to 60% of health regen for allies in the first place, which I think is amazing. Because now not only are they getting their 50 to 60% health back, they're also getting some healing over time on top of their weapon life leech. So in theory, they should never die. Hopefully, we can hope. Our next and final one is Cold Purification. Skill activation removes negative statuses from you and all your allies in range and receive negative statuses immunity for 5 seconds. Brilliant! Because now what you're able to do is keep your team relatively immune to negative status effects by just looping Cold Purification and Healing Wave or Fixing Wave. You know, it's absolutely brilliant. And then as long as you keep throwing out your turret every 5 seconds or whatever, you're able to very easily keep the healing that you and your allies receive topped up with a 30% boost. And I think that's amazing. Now, of course, it's very hard to get gameplay for this type of build, but I hope you guys try it out, and I hope you guys mix it up a bit compared to what's normal. I went a bit more in depth with this one, I feel, because you're kind of not able to get very solid gameplay of the support build. But hopefully, I have tried this. Pardon me. I have tried this. I think it works wonderfully. I got the idea from my friend Wolfie, who I play a lot with, because he had a similar one, but then the patch came out, it was made worse. So I made a support build that covers everything, except giving your teammates armor, and that's very easy to include in my opinion, but I focused on more getting them healed and keeping their health up, because their armor doesn't need to be any higher. But, guys, if you like it, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave any thoughts on the build. If you want to suggest anything on how to change it, go for it. I want to hear it all. But otherwise, guys, it was nice seeing you. And stay safe. We'll see you later.